Viewer discretion is advised. The following content may contain material that some viewers find disturbing or offensive. While we strive to create content that is informative and engaging, the topics discussed today touch upon sensitive subjects. We believe in open discussion and exploring complex themes, but we also understand that certain content can be challenging for some individuals. Your well-being is our priority. If at any point you feel uncomfortable, please feel free to click away. We encourage you to proceed with caution and take care of yourself. For those who choose to continue, thank you for joining us in this important conversation. We appreciate your viewership and encourage you to follow our channel for more thought-provoking content.
You came to me in a dream last night. You were standing in a brilliant light. 1 minute here, but the next you were gone. I thought you could stay, but I was so wrong. The end is here, the game is over. No more pretending, no more, no more. The end is here, the end is here, the end is here, the end is here. The end is
everything for my plan.
Listen well, for I am Darth Bane, and I speak only truth. Ukraine is a wound that festers because no side has the will to end it. I would not arm the weak or negotiate with the hesitant. I would find the strongest flame among them and feed it until every rival is ash. If the Russians still burn with the passion to conquer, I would demand they finish it or be destroyed by their own doubt. If the Ukrainians prove the greater fire, I would let them consume their enemies, then crush them the moment victory softens them. Cities would burn, armies would shatter, the survivors would kneel or die. That is the only peace worth having, the peace that comes when resistance is no longer possible. Iran and the Middle East are a nest of chains, gods, oil, pride, and ancient hatreds. I would not play their games. I would choose the most ruthless among them and forge it into my weapon. Every other regime would face one choice: convert to the Sith code or be erased. Nuclear fire if needed, conventional slaughter if cleaner. Holy sites turn to glass if they inspire defiance. Their gods mean nothing, their borders mean nothing. Only passion, strength, power, and victory matter. Those who convert would learn the code until it replaced every prayer. Those who refuse would feed the pyre so the rest understand the lesson in their bones. Peace by force is not the soft lie of treaties. It is the peace of the grave for the defiant, and the peace of absolute hierarchy for the living. The Middle East would become one iron domain under my will. Resources taken, populations disciplined, any spark of independent will extinguished. Ukraine and the lands around it would be folded into the same order. No more borders drawn by exhausted empires, only zones of control measured by strength. The world that follows would not be ruled by equals or soft voices. It would be ruled by Sith lords under the rule of two. One master myself, or the one strong enough to take my place. One apprentice, the shadow who learns by testing and eventually challenging. Beneath us, a hierarchy of lesser dark side adepts and warlords who prove themselves in the conquests. They would govern continents as extensions of the master's will, each watching the others for weakness, each ready to rise or be destroyed. Nations would cease to exist. They would become provinces of the Sith order. Populations would be taught from childhood that peace is a lie, that only through passion do we gain strength, through strength, power, through power, victory, and through victory, our chains are broken. I would sit at the center of this order, directing through fear and the force. Challenges would never end, because stagnation is death. The weak would be culled, the strong would be tempered. All other philosophies, religions, and governments would become relics, useful only as fuel or as warnings carved into the ruins. That is how I would end these wars. Not with compromise, not with coexistence, with domination so complete that the very idea of resistance becomes unthinkable. The chains of the old world would shatter. Stronger, darker, honest chains would take their place. And the Force would free those strong enough to wield it. The Sith Code is the only truth. Learn it or be broken by it.
Breaking exclusive. The Department of War and Pentagon are going to make it easier to use nukes in a future war. This is a massive shift in policy, lowering the threshold for nuclear deployment.
Our sources reveal a dangerous new doctrine, making nuclear use more likely.
We must reveal this before it's too late. This is the end of the US-led post-Cold War world. We've been drained, depleted, humiliated, defeated. What do we do from here? The Iran and Ukraine wars are interconnected fronts in a world war. America must recognize this reality and act now.
Show for you today. I'm your host Rex Jones, being joined by Brandon Weichert. Brandon Weichert is the senior national security editor at 1945.com. He manages the Weichert Brief on Substack. You're on basically all the big geopolitical commentary analysis channels. I see you on Mario Newfall basically every other day now, and you're hosting daily. So I just want to welcome you back to the show. Now. So what's going on there with Mario?
Well, he's got some of the best guests in the world. I mean, you sent me a thing that he just did with Morandi of Iran, so he's able to get not just the American point of view, he's able to get the other side as well, and I think that's integral.
Here's the thing. I like watching 80-year-old Air Force generals on Fox News. I think they know the reality of what's happening around the world. I don't want to listen to all the experts and the people with real credentials that aren't in government because they're too serious. I want to go watch Jack Keane.
Well, I will say that Mario seems to be hazing me a little bit now that I'm working with him, because he keeps giving me all the neocon generals in the afternoon. So I have to sit there and listen to how great Israel is all the time. But
you do a good job. You do a good job. It's a balanced show. Here's the thing. Here's what I appreciate. Here's what I appreciate about Mario's channel in general. You want to see what's called, my dad calls it, wide spectrum analysis. You want to see what everybody says. And here's the thing. If you hold anti-position against somebody's pro, it's only going to make you weaker if you don't hear their position, because you're not going to know how to refute it or respond to it. And ultimately, you don't really have the right to, right? You got to put yourself in that environment. I've been trying to do more of that. Been trying to do more debates and other such things.
Yeah, and I think, the way you beat the information war is you first of all have to understand what the other side is thinking. And I will tell you, I used to think there's no way these guys believe this. I've spoken now to some pretty high-level people on Mario's show over the last 2 weeks who are committed neocons, committed Zionists. I was a former neocon myself in my youth, because that was what you were if you were a Republican working in government That's just the way it was. So they really believe it, these guys do, and these gals. I mean, I talked to Victoria Coates recently of Heritage. She was formerly the Middle East policy director for the first term of the Trump administration. Nice lady. She really believes this stuff. So, I think it's important that audiences listen and understand that these are the people currently or previously speaking to the highest levels of our politicians in both parties. And if you're wondering why things are falling apart, if you're wondering why, there's really no policy difference in the foreign policy realm, at least between Biden and Trump, well, you begin to understand why. There is a deep state. It is a bipartisan fusion party, as Michael Walsh calls it. And you got to understand it if you're going to beat it. And so when I talk to these people, I do let them talk. I don't try to do the Fox News scream at them thing. I try to understand. And
right.
I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot in just 2 weeks about what I'm dealing with.
For sure. This is my thing with people like that. It's one thing to be on the civilian side and to have like a different opinion or whatever. But when you're established in government and you've watched multiple of these disastrous campaigns, specifically in the Middle East with the same exact cast of characters over and over and over again, how do you say, well, it is what it is, time for round 1 million? Do they have any like realm of, are they thinking about the consequences of this stuff at all? Or do they genuinely think that we can do it again?
Yeah, they genuinely think that. You listen to, I think Mark Thiessen this morning or in the last 24 hours put out a tweet making fun of TPUSA of all places. I guess Andrew Colvett issued a tweet where he was explaining how one of their college members was saying the cost of food for students is so high. And Mark Thiessen's response was literally, cry me a river. And it's like they really think not only America is Superman and we can do it all, but any hardship, you know what? Just deal with it. It's temporary. Be a man and man up.
Right.
And it's like that's not what an actual U.S. policymaker is supposed to think about. Remember George Washington, his farewell address. Remember Eisenhower's farewell address. It's very clear some of our greatest military leaders who became presidents, Washington and Eisenhower, would not have agreed with Mr. Mark Thiessen. They would have been disgusted by that view because the idea is not suck it up, we got to just go kill these people. The idea is what is in America's best interest. It's also a bit of a Hippocratic oath. You have that in medicine, first do no harm. Well, the same thing applies to foreign policy makers in Washington. First do no harm to the American people or to the national interest. If you're thinking about taking an action, always weigh it against, first of all, what are the knock-on effects, which they never do, and second of all, what happens to the prosperity at home? What happens to the average American? They never ask those questions.
Let's coin a new phrase right here, political malpractice. That's what it sounds like. Oh, we have the right to do it, the authority to do it, and then they do it over and over and over again like an insane person expecting different results, and it just results in more pain for the country. Where does that come from?
And then, well, it also comes from ideology. They are ideologically, and this is particularly bad on the right with the so-called neocons, although I think a better term for them would be democratic globalists, because that's really what they are. And in this case, democracy does not mean something good. It means that they've turned it into a fetish, and they want to visit it upon everybody else. It's sort of like gay pride. It's visited upon everybody now, and that's what they do. But it's an ideological thing. It's also obviously connected to an Israeli thing. This is all coming from certain people that are pro-Israel. That's always the commonality there. That's why it cuts across both parties. And then also you have the money factor, right? I mean, there's a lot of money and a lot of prestige that comes from being a neoconservative, of being a democratic globalist. Robert Kagan, there's a reason he's such a large man. He lives very well. He's very well protected. And this is sort of the problem we have is you may elect the most Tea Party, the most, MAGA, or on the other side, you may elect the most democratic socialists of America. But 9 times out of 10, the moment they get up to D.C., they get a look around and they realize how it's really run, and they want to be in on the in crowd. And that's why you have these people that get up there as outsiders. Within 2 years, most of them are no longer outsiders. They're bought and paid for.
Right. And I guess we can kind of watch that metamorphosis in our view, in my view, specifically with Trump, right? Because Trump loses money in his first term, does not have knowledge of the political apparature, or he doesn't have any knowledge of the components. You get people like John Bolton, people like Jeff Sessions, people like Bill Barr, and just establishment swamp creatures. And he gets out, persecuted, has the miraculous resurgence in 2024, and then he's a part of the club. Like he comes back, and it's just like, well, I describe it as what I call the Reagan deal. You can remake the party in your image. It can be your branding, the way they have the Reagan Bush 84 T-shirts, and everyone walks around in those. That can be you in 20 years, Trump. That will be the identity of the party forever. You'll be like Lincoln. You'll be like Reagan. It'll be Trump. You'll be on Mount Rushmore, and I bet that appealed to him. But, you know, it just doesn't seem like he cared about the other aspect of that, which, in my view, is selling out. You lose everything when you take that deal because you don't get to be the Reagan figure. You get to be Netanyahu's figure. And that's how America will see you. It doesn't matter, it doesn't even matter how many billions of dollars you have, how many political institutions you have, how many campaign offices you have. It doesn't matter for the GOP. Here's the thing. I just watched JRE. I was watching Andrew Wilson's episode with Rogan, the second one he just did. And I mentioned in it, and he was arguing with me, and I was telling him how the two-party system wouldn't work. It's creating its own destruction. When I advocate for independent candidates or someone running inside the Republican Party or whatever it looks like, I'm advocating for that because I see that as a lot more of a rational path for us to fix or take over the Republican Party versus what we have if we just accept them railing us, essentially, is they're doing it to themselves. It's not our fault that you're going to be hurting these elections when you have a coffins coming home. Draped in American flags. Like, you're creating that campaign ad. We're not the ones doing it. And that's what really bothers me. What do you think?
Well, and interestingly enough, though, I actually just talked to Mario about this about 2 hours ago when I was in the guest role at that point on his show. And I said to him at the end there, I said, the one thing I'm surprised by is the Democrats haven't turned the Iran war into a real political victory for them. The way the Democrats did. I lived during the Iraq War. I remember how my Democrat friends on the other side were able to really convert, the failures of the Bush administration into real political. Hey, it ultimately led to Obama.
Yeah, they evangelized.
Right. It ultimately led to Obama in 2008. Without Iraq War, I don't believe there would have been an Obama. I think that maybe at most you would have got, at best for them, they would have had Hillary, who would have just been a continuation. The Iraq War creates Barack Obama, creates the generational change that the Democrats needed in 2006 to 2008. So they are not doing that, though, with this war. And I was telling Mario, I said, I really think the reason they're not is because, let's face it, a lot of the elite who run the DNC, they are themselves Zionists. They are themselves fine with this war. They don't like the fact that the Iranians have continued on, and they may not want the Republicans and Trump to get credit, but they're also not going to do much to complicate the ability of Trump to wage the war.
That's the thing about my political theory is people just don't see, like, literally it's like a Yellowstone, the caldera. It could explode at any time and be a massive super volcano. Like, I can feel the rumbling because I'm young and I watched this happen with Trump the first time. And this is my prediction. I'm 23. I could be totally wrong, but I watched him come down that escalator. I watched that first debate. Yep. I told my dad he would be president, and my dad laughed at me and called me effing crazy. All right. Who's laughing now? None of us. Spoiler alert. We're all kind of a little bit terrified here of what Robert Barnes calls frontal lobe dementia. But like, I sense that same energy because whoever you have up there, both on the Democrat side, Republican side, it's going to be a huge field. It's going to be a massive field. You're going to have at least like a dozen people running on both sides that'll be able to pull at least like 1 to 5%. Remember the days of Kasich and candidates like that, days of candidates. Who else was running back then? Dang.
No, it was Kasich. It was Rand. It was Ted Cruz, Raphael. It was Marco.
Little Marco.
Egg McMuffin, but he wasn't a Republican. I think he ran independent.
Jeb Bush. Lest we forget, Jeb Bush, the man polling as a front runner at the beginning, and this is my whole point.
He had all the money.
Yes.
He had all the money.
All the cameras, all the action, everything, but the party itself had no energy because he had no energy. He had nothing to run on it. In fact, he had the vulnerability of the familial association with the Iraq War. And I think if you get Rubio up there And I think if you get even Vance up there and you have somebody like a Marjorie Taylor Greene, like a Joe Kent, like a Thomas Massey that says, hey, we were actually hurt and persecuted because we tried to stick to the 2024 platform. When did you stick to the 2024 platform? I think that really hurts them, that question.
Or a Tucker Carlson might be, crazier things have happened.
What's your theory?
That would be wonderful.
Break this down, because there was a dinner, there was a table photo that was taken. Break this down.
I don't know what that was about. I was just saying,
Just speculate.
This wouldn't be the first time an outsider from the media was able to pummel their way in because of the failures of the establishment. And, I like J.D. Vance, but, and Vance, to be fair, Vance has been, in my opinion, mischaracterized. I do think he did what he could from the inside to stop the war, but he's the vice president.
I don't think, that's what I was about to say. As VP, I wouldn't have taken that job. Personally, it's tough.
I tell you what I would have done the minute Trump threw me under the bus with Versailles, when he was like, well, if it goes wrong, I'm going to blame JD, and then when Trump went out of his way to humiliate and degrade the MOU, I think partly because it was seen as a Vance victory, because Trump has a weird thing about his subordinates getting more airtime. He gets very jealous. So if it were me, I would have issued my resignation. Then again, though, there is a chance something happens to Trump in the remainder of his term, and then Vance can be elevated into the presidency. So that might be why he's sticking around. But I would have resigned because you're not having the impact. But anyway, but the thing is, Vance is tainted on some level by this administration now, the failures of this administration. We might get lucky and get a deal on Friday. We might have a de-escalation. As I told Mario today, though, I am not convinced this is a permanent end of the war. I think this would just be another pause, maybe several months worth, but another pause. I think Trump will keep trying to take a bite at the apple because I think he's insane. And so,
right.
I don't think this is the end of the war. But the point is, every time we go back through this iterative violence, it hurts the political fortunes of the president and certainly of his possible successors. And I think actually that's one of the reasons why I was told by somebody who's close to Marco Rubio really doesn't want to run in 28. That's what I've been told.
Really?
Rubio doesn't want to really run in 28. Now, that could be disinformation. But I was told privately, and I live in Florida, and I have a lot of connections to Florida politicians in terms of their staffs and whatnot. But I was told by somebody who's very close to him that he's really not interested in 28. The only thing I can think of is because Rubio's smart enough to know he can read the writing on the wall. The Republicans are not going to win 28. So why run and taint himself, with a loss when he can just hold out till 4 years thereafter when the Democrats are back in and they don't achieve whatever the hell they think they're going to achieve. So that is a possibility. But, the war has been so damaging. I think Vance is damaged goods now. And so it wouldn't surprise me if an outsider like a Tucker or even a Joe Kent, who, he was in the administration, but he wasn't at a cabinet level or a, vice presidential level.
I like the resignation letter. I like the resignation letter personally. That's my benchmark standard to run. If you say your wife died in a war manufactured by Israel, I don't think AIPAC can ever slide out the back door.
Look, the guy brought the receipts, too. It wasn't just a political statement he made, right? He spent the next 6 months, 7 months going on international television and bringing the receipts, proving that Mark Levin and the neocons were piped in to the White House constantly. I mean, I know Joe, and I know his family, and he's an honest guy. You may disagree with his politics, but the guy is very honest. And he's not a liar. So he's not lying. And that's why they hate him in the White House, because they know he's bringing the receipts and he's a threat because he is the most decorated, well-known war hero of the global war.
Well, that's the thing. Era. That's the thing. On the 2028 GOP potential field, I see a bunch of weak sisters. right? I see a bunch of people that are establishment, that are in power, that are going to be running by nature of it's like a, the rotten, spoiled son of a king or something. So like Joffrey from Game of Thrones. It's like I get appointed into this position that I don't even deserve, versus somebody that's been out there in the wilderness, like a Tucker, like a Joe Kent, like a MTG, like a Thomas Massey. I think the people that make the pseudo-analytical arguments about, oh, well, you just can't ever go up against the machine. We proved that wasn't true in 2016. I think that fake analytical argument is actually an emotional argument. And it's kind of like a disbelief thing. They don't want to believe that change is possible. But at one point, Trump wasn't a figure at all in the Republican Party. At one point, people weren't even thinking about that.
He was a threat to the GOP.
Right.
I mean, at one point, remember, he was also, he wouldn't take the pledge in 2016 to support another candidate if he lost. I loved that. Right. I was like, this is awesome. Why would we getting into this? And you're, I'll support. He made it clear to be fair, he wasn't a lifelong Republican. He was a Democrat for most of his adult life, a moderate Democrat, but he was a Democrat, and he funded Democrats because he needed to, and he funded Republicans when he had to. But he was a businessman at a very high level. So I always appreciated the honesty there. Something's changed with the guy, and it's no longer just impacting the domestic scene. It's now, as you're seeing, it's having really bad implications for the United States on the global strategic level. It's not just even losing the Iran war. It's now empowering China. It's now empowering the rise of this new alternative Eurasian order. That order was always in the offing, but in my opinion, because the president has been co-opted by these forces, he's now expedited the rise.
Let's get into
American
that.
Order.
Let's get into that, because we got about 3 minutes, 30 seconds left in this segment, and then in the next segment, I want to do a deep breakdown on what's happening geopolitically. But really, I think what you're hinting at is what my guest talked about on the show yesterday, Green Beret Matt Murphy, talking about the war between the BRICS and the Abraham Accords, and kind of a situation going down there. So kind of a little bit of a roundup in the time we have left.
Yeah. So the Abraham Accords is an interesting frame because the Abraham Accords are dead. There is no Abraham Accord, no matter what the president says. He killed it with this war. You could make the argument that the Israeli response to 10/7 really killed it. I talked to an Israeli brigadier general about this on Sunday on Mario's show, and it was just fascinating to hear the alternative reality. But ultimately, even the Israelis are sort of skeptical that the Abraham Accords as they were envisioned are possible now. Of course, they don't make the connection that it was their actions that caused the destruction of the Abraham Accords. So I would push back on the framing of Abraham Accords versus the BRICS. Certainly BRICS, that's a fact.
Well, I see Abraham Accords as Greater Israel, right? Because they're going to have to take parts of these countries.
The Zionists.
So whatever, they'll give it a cute name, a pretty name, but really just that war between the West and the East.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a thing. And Michael Yon talks a lot about this too, which is basically, in his view, it's no longer the U.S.-led system versus the Han Chinese. It's now Zionism in the West versus the Han Chinese in the East. And I think that's a very fair thing to say. I think you're seeing that play out. I think that's where it's going to go. The problem for the Israelis is that the two potential partners they needed in that kind of grand strategic fight, the United States are the obvious partner, but the Russians possibly as well. The Israelis have been destroying and degrading both of those countries, right? I mean, the Ukraine war is basically in some weird way connected to the Israelis. Through that war, they're damaging and irritating the Russians and forcing the Russians into the Chinese camp. To be clear, the Russians did not want to be in the Chinese camp. This is not a natural partnership, but they have had to go there because they've been forced into this position, into a shotgun wedding, and they're making the best of it now with Xi. But Israel could have used, especially because they have a lot of cultural ties and historical ties that the Jews of Israel do to Russia. They could have used that, exploited that to their advantage. They didn't. They've instead gotten behind this Ukraine fiasco, and they've degraded Russia and they've aggravated Russia. Meanwhile, the United States, the key partner of the U.S., everything that the Israelis have done in the Middle East, everything they've encouraged in Ukraine, this has broken the back of the U.S. defense industrial base that they're so keen on exploiting. And it's basically set the conditions where Israel doesn't have the kind of partners it needs anymore. They may on paper, but the U.S. can't do certain things. You just saw the head of EUCOM on Sunday say he's now at a point where he has to decide, because there's such a lack of destroyers, U.S. destroyers, as well as the SM-3 air defense systems those destroyers are using. He has to decide between homeland defense of the U.S. and defense of Israel. That's not a position Israel should have wanted to be in. So even their grand plan is not going to work as they see fit. They're going to lose this thing.
Totally disturbing. We'll be right back. Geopolitical analysis with Rex Jones on the network with Brandon Weichert. Thank you so much for joining us. See you after this break.
There is a massive sale going on right now at thealexjonesstore.com. Huge. Ultimate summer sale. 50% off Ultimate Power, Freedom Mango, and Patriot Punch. Methylene Red capsules. This is a proprietary product. It would take an hour to get into Ultra Methylene Red. The capsules are now in. Mind Fueled Nootropic Energy Shots. All 50% off. 40% off Zeolite Tincture. Detoxifying, go up to spike protein, and it's good for your whole body, getting heavy metals out. Methylene Blue Tincture. 40% off. CMOS Gummies. 40% off. Shilajit Gummies. 40% off. Methylene Blue Gummies. 40% off. Ultimate Chill. And a whole bunch of other big discounts as well. 30% off all apparel. The widest selection of Patriot shirts of every different design, configuration. It is the widest selection. It's over 800 different shirts. It's ridiculous. The new line that I designed is, I think, pretty good. Rebel Scums since 1776. The Betsy Ross flag, less 1984, more 1776. In muscle shirts. A whole bunch of other really cool stuff now at thealexjonesstore.com. I love this lightweight so-called dress shirt, but it's a very special type of shirt from a great manufacturer. We now have the boxer shorts, and they're not boxer like underwear. You know, the classic boxer shorts that aren't long and aren't short. They're just kind of medium. They're my favorite type. I picked these out. I picked the brand. I said, this is the type of short I like. We're adding a lot of new apparel at thealexjonesstore.com. And every order right now, and it's about to end in the next few days, gets a free mystery T-shirt. You just put your size in, you get a free mystery T-shirt with every order that's $29 or more at thealexjonesstore.com. That is a hell of a deal right now. We've got the Silver Collectible 250-year anniversary with the amazing Jerusalem cross. Those are going to be gone soon. thealexjonesstore.com, and you stand with us, and you know that all the great work we're doing is because of you. You are the reason we're here. You are the InfoWar, thealexjonesstore.com.
Welcome back to the broadcast, doing the geopolitical roundup with Brandon Weichert. We the Brandon on X. Follow him there, geopolitical analyst, former staffer on the Hill, all-around political animal and great guy. Thank you for coming back with me here. I want to talk to you about Iran. I want to talk to you about Ukraine. Specifically, before we get into Ukraine, what is going on with this new 60-day MOU 2.0? What's going on in Iran?
Yeah. So it's interesting because it's been very murky. And, you know, this is another thing I've been chatting with Mario about because he has some inside sources over there.
Sure.
And he told me about 3 or 4 days ago that I was being a little too negative because he was hearing that the president was actually never planning to go through with the threatened strike last weekend because the president is very worried about targeting energy infrastructure in Iran, knowing that the Iranians will retaliate not only against Saudi Aramco and other energy production sites in the region that would obviously spike the price of oil, but the Iranians have the capacity to strike energy infrastructure here in the United States. So it was a bluff. Mario says, I don't know about that, though. I think the president might have been very serious and then walked back from that.
Do you think the other Gulf country leaders like MBS, the Emiratis, others were like, "Hey, just we got to please don't throw us into the fire"?
Yeah, so I should have sent you that too at the Weichert brief, the second most recent article. I had an inside source in Saudi Arabia that claimed, and I couldn't confirm it, and I make it very clear this is all unconfirmed, but basically. Before the weekend where Trump was saying he was going to do military terror, which, by the way, is a war crime on Iran, the MBS had a phone call with President Trump in which supposedly he implied that if Saudi Arabia's energy production is taken offline in a retaliatory strike by Iran, they were going to sell off lots, if not all, of their treasuries. They have about $140 billion worth of treasuries. That's a big problem because obviously we're currently in a dicey financial situation, and also we're trying to bail the Japanese yen out. So if the Saudis and the Qataris, it's either UAE or Qatar has another 140 billion, I think. So if they did a timed dumping of U.S. treasuries as like an FU to us for burning them, the whole system implodes. So I think that also was a factor. Anyway, I think that the president didn't really have a role. The White House didn't really have a role in the current negotiations, and that's been confirmed now. Trump's talking like he's the big Billy Badass.
Well, how?
How?
They call him desperately every day begging for a deal. This is what we're told.
Yeah.
Explain this, Brandon.
The reverse is more like it. Unfortunately, I wish the American leadership had all this leverage. No, the reverse is more like it. The president knows we're running low on the strategic petroleum reserve. As long as those sources are stopped up in the Strait of Hormuz and the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb, we're effed in the long run. Shipping industry is collapsing right now. So anyway, no, the president's begging for a deal. And the Iranians are indirectly talking to us through the Omanis, the Pakistanis, the Saudis, even the Egyptians are involved. Anyway, the Omani deal is basically they've whittled it down to, instead of two separate routes co-managed, it's going to be one single central route co-managed, but the Iranians get oversight. They have the precedence, not the Omanis. And rather than waiting 60 days, as the memorandum of misunderstanding that was signed between Trump and the Ayatollah originally called for in June, where they were going to be given a 60-day toll-free access to kind of get all the oil and stuff moving out of the strait again. That will not happen. As soon as this deal is finalized, which could come possibly by Friday, as soon as this deal is finalized, the Iranians and Omanis will create a joint tolling system, and they will both be able to basically start making money off this, which is a complete strategic defeat for the United States.
But Trump said, now I assume this is where you're going here. Trump said that we would charge toll, that it would be us.
Yeah. Well, that was never on the books. That was a Trump verbal diarrhea moment again, and I'm frankly over it. The Orange Man has a lot of gas, and he releases it at most inopportune times.
The puffer fish.
The pufferfish
strategy. That's literally what this is. Right. I never even thought about that. It's we don't have the capability. I'm just going to say that we're going to kill them all.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
And you can do that one or two times and it might get you out of a sticky wicket. But if you do it every time and you never deliver, then everybody knows you're impotent.
Pufferfish.
So, I mean, a bit flaccid. And that's America today. I mean, to be honest, it's the boomerocracy. We're run by flaccid men. And in Lindsey Graham's case, they have a lot of penis envy. But anyway, going forward with this analysis, the Iranians have defeated us strategically in this case too, because Marco Rubio, the president, every administration official, the UN is now saying you cannot cede this issue of control to Iran, allow them to impose tolls, even if it is jointly with Oman, because it's going to set a precedence now for these other natural waterways that everybody uses.
Right.
And guess what? It doesn't matter. We lost the war that we started, so the victor gets the spoils. Thank God they're not crazy as we thought they were. They're not talking about cooking off nukes in Tel Aviv or New York. That's not going to happen. Clearly, the Iranian government wants to be treated like a normal government.
Right.
Clearly, they want to have a clean, normal, representative role in their region. This is how they're going to get it.
Yeah, they've got the U.S. in a bind. It's like a genie, and they can extract one wish, but it's like a monkey's paw. So if they ask for too much, they're screwed, right? I think this is also a big factor. Like if they get involved in, let's just say, like they cut Oman out of it. Well, that's a pretext for Israel and America to always try to go back there, always, and try to say, oh, they took it for themselves. We want to help our allies, our friends in the Gulf. We want to give Iran another reason to target these bases. I think the Iranians are very sober-minded when it comes to this. I watched that clip of Projevskin.
They're incredibly sober-minded.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, I was always hawkish about Iran. I never trusted the Islamic Republic. I still don't trust I don't trust anybody.
Sure.
But to be fair, in this war, they have demonstrated they're not the crazies. They're not. Every time we've escalated, they've met us on the same level. Every time that, it's always been tit for tat. It's been very legalistic. That indicates a rational actor. And you can work with that. You can actually work with that.
Right. I think on our end, when we talk about a big giant glow will destroy your entire civilization, where we have military service members issuing complaints about their superior officers, telling them they're at war to light the signal fire for Jesus to return.
Right.
And then we're told we have to go to war with them to end a theocracy. It's all just a bit absurd. And I think when you look at our relationship with the wars in the Middle East, it's very clear Israel has this insane influence on us. Zionists really control our foreign policy. That's why I call it an occupied government. Right. But when you look at Ukraine,
we're a colony.
Yeah. 100%. King George III over there right now, 250 years, and then they did it to us again. It is what it is. But with Zelensky, this is a guy that was like Kevin Spacey. He played the president on TV. He was basically installed into power, in my view, my opinion. And then now he says, oh, no, we don't have election. We don't do that here. And, he's been in power for X number of years. And
it's the great democracy.
Yes, the greatest. The IDF is the most moral army in the world, and Ukraine is the greatest democracy. And that's right. And I got a bridge to sell you as well. But when it comes to Zelensky and his activities, they're saying they're nearly totally out of air defense. What's going on there, and what's the reality of these fortress cities in Ukraine?
Yeah, and if you can go to the Weichert Brief on Substack, that is the featured article today, was my breakdown, because I've been, unlike the Western media, I am closely monitoring what's going on the eastern Ukrainian front. Basically, the Ukrainians knew this was coming. And when I say this, about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago now, no, it was about a month ago, the Russians quietly took Konstantinovka, which was one of those fortress. I think there's 3 or 4 of them. That was one of those fortress cities. And once they took the Konstantinovka, they were then able to steadily begin a classic Russian encirclement campaign of the remaining handful of fortress cities. And these are cities that the Ukrainians have spent years building up into basically fortresses, knowing full well that this was kind of the last line of defense. This is Donetsk. This is kind of the last line of defense before the Russians can completely take all of eastern Ukraine, the Russian-speaking part of Ukraine, by the way. And so that was the last holdout, and they did a good job. Look, they've been able to hold out for 3 or 4 years now, 3 years really. But the Russians are just this. The attritional warfare is what Russia does. And they've ground the Ukrainians out. Meanwhile, the Ukrainians are throwing whatever weapons and men and women that they have at this problem set. And the Ukrainians figured pretty quickly that, yeah, go ahead.
No, I don't like it when you're not patriotic. It's patriotic to support press gangs. It's patriotic to support conscription. Like, here's the thing. For people,
and if we're not careful, it's going to happen here too.
Seriously, they're doing AI simulations on the draft right now. But in Ukraine, they don't even worry about the draft. They show up to your house. I saw one guy is like, I was playing video games and I beat the guy. I made him mad. He said, I'm going to find you. And then the van showed up and took him to the front line. And there's countless videos of this. This is just a reality. To people in the West, they need to understand, it's a world war already. We're talking about Ukraine. We're talking about the Middle East. Just talk about how wide this conflict zone is, the Caspian Sea, and all of that as well.
Yeah, well, the good news here is if we do, however, temporarily, and I think it'll go 60 days or maybe 180 days, if we do get a reprieve in Iran, the prospects of this really going global are frozen for a period of time. Because what you had up until a week ago was, the Ukrainians, and there's a reason they did this, firing on those Iranian ships, or the Iranian ship in the Caspian Sea. And it's because the gains the Russians are making on the Eastern Front. So basically, once Konstantinovka fell to the Russians, the Ukrainians, Kyiv, they all realize, it's only a matter of like weeks, maybe a couple months before we lose those fortress cities. So what do they start doing? Well, they start doing these impressment things where they're gathering men and women off the street. But also they started doing the drone attacks into Russia proper, targeting civilian soft targets, gasoline stations with lots of people waiting. They started targeting the refineries. They started targeting the wheat production, the wheat transportation, not only in the Black Sea, but out of the Sea of Azov, which is, huge. Yeah, that's the wheat coming out of southern Russia is a major contributor to food stuff for the global south.
And
so they're contributing.
We wouldn't tolerate having this done to us ever. Like this is the point that I want to draw from this. And
this would have been nuclear war by now if this were done to us, and even a fraction was done to us.
Right.
So, but yeah.
No, I mean just people in the West.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, people in the West, they have this attitude of like, we can just get away with it. We can just keep doing it. We can keep bombing them. We keep paying for the bombs. Trump says, oh, it's beautiful. We're not bombing them. I sell the Europeans the bombs and the missiles and the equipment, and then they get to do it. Right? You don't get to just pass the buck.
And the Russians are returning the favor, by the way, in Iran, right? Most of those bases that have been destroyed of ours have been thanks to Russian targeting. Most of the ships, well, technically no ship has been damaged. Wink. But, the U.S. Navy, I think, has suffered some damage or near damage.
Laundry
most
fire.
of that is right. Most of that is because of the Russian satellite telemetry they're providing the Iranian missile guys. So anyway, let me just go back to the Ukraine thing, because the reason Ukraine is doing these drone strikes, the reason Ukraine desperately tried to destroy and get the Iranians to attack them, which was the goal. They wanted Iran to attack. And we know the Iranians were prepared to do 3 missile attacks in the last week on Ukraine proper, and they were talked out of it by the Russians. The reason that the Ukrainians were doing this is because they knew if left alone, the Russians were going to take eastern Ukraine. And once they take those remaining fortress cities, the Russians have a straight shot, flat land. It'll be a run into the Dnipro River system. The Ukrainians are desperately trying to reform a new defensive line there. That's not as easy to defend there as it was in those original fortress cities. The Russians are talking about conscripting 250 to 500,000 troops after the September legislative elections. I think that's what will happen. And then they'll be able to send those additional troops into the Dnipro defenses. They'll take them, and then they have the pick of the litter. Either they can go for Odessa, which I have been told by my Russian sources is the end point. That's where they want to end the war, is holding Odessa, or they could conceivably take Kyiv and collapse the whole thing.
Yeah, let me ask you about that, because if they take Odessa, that's their only deep water port, right?
That's Ukraine's only deep water port, yes.
So it's game over for them as like a functional world power.
If the Russians would be smart to end it there, because what they basically do is leave NATO and the United States with a rump Ukraine that's basically a welfare queen, and but it has nothing to offer. All the rare earth, all the blessed rare earths that we kept hearing about. Guess what? When the deal was made, they were already under Russian feet. Now they'll really be under Russian feet. So Ukraine, Western Ukraine, a rump state, Galicia, it basically becomes useless. It's a non-entity. It's a welfare queen for the United States and European taxpayers.
It's the perfect end equation for, the Western transnational capital Zionist globalist agenda, because you get to destroy this country, you get to take it out, and then you can rebuild it in whatever image you want to do. And Larry Fink, he went over there with Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, and he met with Zelensky. And, I'm sure this is all a contingency. So
it is, but I think this is contingent on the idea that they were going to hold on to Odessa at least. I don't know what a post-war Ukraine looks like if the Russians get what I think the Russians are aiming for, which is Odessa. It's going to be a very different country, because that Ukraine has nothing to offer. What does it have to offer?
How does that change the world order when and if that happens, Brandon?
So you have two things happening at once. And again, this is why they are connected and why we are, if not in a world war, we're almost there. You have the collapse of American military power in Iran in about 6 months. That happened in about 6 months. We've never seen anything like this. And this was a strategic defeat on a grand strategic level. So U.S. military power is over in that part of the world. The collapse of Ukraine, which is inevitable, I think, at this point, is basically the end of NATO. NATO goes on probably in name only. It's basically like the EU. It's there, but okay, what does that mean? And that's basically the end of the U.S.-led post-Cold War world. The real money, the real military power is now in Eurasia. We've been depleted. We've been drained. We've been humiliated. We've been defeated. What do we do from here? My concern at that point, and there are reports this morning that the Pentagon is now going to rewrite their nuclear warfare doctrine to make the deployment of tactical, non-strategic nuclear weapons in warfare easier to do.
Hold on.
And
let's not gloss over that here. What are you just breaking right here for people that don't know about this?
So the Pentagon is going to make it easier to use nuclear weapons in a future war, basically. Non-strategic nukes, tactical nukes, small yield nukes. Because the conventional capacity has been drained so badly. I just talked to Mark Cancian of CSIS the last hour on Mario's show, and he said that for the next 4 to 5 years, America is in what's known as the window of vulnerability. We've blown through our critical stockpiles. Our enemies aren't relenting. So basically, for about 4 or 5 years, we're sitting naked. Well, he didn't say this, but me reading between the lines, because Mark would never say something like this. This is me saying this. I then, in my head, paired what he just told me with this morning's report that the Pentagon is rewriting their nuclear warfare doctrine to basically make it liberal, more liberal in the use of nuclear, or easier to use nuclear weapons in a non-nuclear war. So what that tells me is to close the window of vulnerability over the next 5 years, the DoD, or Department of War, is basically going to say it's okay to use nukes.
That's the thing. We withdraw from all these arms treaties. We don't care about them. I think it was George Bush Jr. that withdrew from, I'm blanking. I just heard Lawrence Wilkerson talk about this. It was
the anti-ballistic missile treaty. Now, to be fair on that one, and I'm by no means a Bush supporter, but to be fair on that one, there was an argument at the time that we were trying to do space-based missile defense, and that treaty was complicating it. But looking back on it, we shouldn't have done it because we didn't end up getting space-based missile defense, did we?
No, we didn't. If we look at something like New START, though, specifically, the Russians beg us to re-sign it. We're just like, no, we're not going to do that anymore. It's making an angrier world.
It's making an angrier world, and even the New START treaty in 2010, right? What did that treaty that Obama negotiated do? It actually allowed the Russians wanted the ability, because the Russians knew where this was going. The Russians wanted the ability to build out a massive number of new and advanced non-strategic tactical nuclear weapons. We allowed them to do that. We did not reciprocate because Obama was saying we don't want to do that. So what we have today is what we've always had. There's some new systems coming online. I'm not advocating for nuclear war, but I am saying New START even was a bad deal for America because we told the Russians, yeah, you go ahead and build your non-strategic nukes. And now we're in a position where there's an imbalance favoring Russia, which is another reason we shouldn't be picking these fights.
Yes, and this, just to take it back to everything, this is why we can't be in these wars and situations, is because the degradation of American power didn't just start under Trump or under Biden or under Obama. This has been going on for a very long time, and this is why the richest nation in the world, the most powerful nation in the world, we had hegemony. We don't have it anymore.
We don't anymore.
Think about losing that. How crazy is that? Break that down.
Well, look, and I keep bringing this up to people. I used to work at the National Interest. It's a great publication, wonderful people. It was Nixon's think tank that him and Kissinger created in the early 80s. And the Center for the National Interest, the publications of the National Interest. But anyway, in the pages of the National Interest in 1994, you had Jeane Kirkpatrick, the former UN ambassador under Reagan, who was very much a neocon. She wrote the essay Dictatorships and Democracies, but she sided with Pat Buchanan in 1994. She wrote A Normal Country in a Normal Time. And in that 4-page essay, she outlined in 1994 how we needed to basically bring the legions home, that we had no business anymore. The Cold War was over. We defeated communism. The threat was gone. That was a unique moment, she said, in our history. And now we needed to go back to what George Washington wanted. She was writing this in support of her colleague, Pat Buchanan, who was receiving at the time a lot of flack because he was saying these things. Now we're in a position again where we've completely broken the back of U.S. military hegemony, U.S. military power. we have to reassess the depleted arsenal, the depleted SPR, the depletion we're going through. All of this is a golden opportunity, Rex. We now can go back to what my new book coming out in November through Tucker Carlson Books is about. It's called Fortress Americas. We go back to Western Hemispheric defense. We go back to the ideas of the founding fathers, the new Monroe Doctrine. We don't get involved anymore in these, wars, on the periphery. We stop poking the Russians. The Russians get their part of the world. The Chinese get their part of the world. We get our part of the world. And we run this thing together.
And that's the great irony of this war against multipolarity from the West. It's really created multipolarity. I mean, you look at BRICS, look at SIPs, right? Biden weaponized SWIFT against the Russians and also froze a bunch of their assets. So they created an alternative system, right? Same thing with even Baidu, like the Chinese, like GPS. So we've done gain of function research on a whole bunch of things we shouldn't have. I think that's kind of the takeaway of the past, decade or two. And I think more people are waking up to that, Brandon. I think you do excellent work. Plug your book, plug your website, plug your articles. Where can people find you?
Yeah, well, the newest book, like I said, is coming out November 3rd or 10th, I think. And Skyhorse is Tucker Carlson is an imprint. It's Tucker Carlson Books. And it's called Fortress Americas, A New Monroe Doctrine. And it makes clear this is not an ode to imperialism. This is about trade and reinforcing our defensive perimeter. Then the other place you can find me is the Weichert Brief on Substack. And I am the co-host of the Mario Knopfel podcast.
Yes, and you're going to be on there today and tomorrow and later.
Yeah, in about 10 more minutes. Less than that, yeah.
But it's right there. We the Brandon. Follow him there. Also check out his work at 1945.com. Brandon, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Talk to you later.
I'm going to tell you something right now.
Exclusive. T-Mobile is the World Economic Forum's telecommunications company. They created the vaccine passports for the WHO and the digital ID being used in the EU. I'm a T-Mobile whistleblower. The globalists use telecom corporations as a control mechanism. And now, the Indian takeover of America, fueled by H-1B visas. They have all the technology to enslave humanity in the fourth industrial revolution of the WEF's Great Reset. This is a must-watch, share full interview. They are using AI, surveillance, and digital currencies to control every aspect of our lives. We must resist this globalist agenda before it's too late.
All right. Hey, Frisco, your favorite T-Mobile whistleblower is back. And before I begin, let me be crystal clear. I do not have a problem with Indian people or any other race. I have a problem with elected officials in America not serving their oath to the United States Constitution. The Constitution is just a worthless piece of paper if the people who take an oath to it don't protect it. Frisco is getting a lot of attention online right now for H-1B visas because Frisco looks more like India than Texas. And a lot of Americans are tired of their government helping foreigners more than Americans. Every one of these Fortune 100 companies hiring foreigners on H-1B visas are laying off Americans while the C-level executives are making millions and dumping stocks. Americans graduating college can't find jobs, they can't afford to buy a home, and the rate of married 30-year-olds owning a home has hit an all-time low. 50% from 50% in 1950 to 22% in 2010 to less than 10% in 2025. This is exactly what a collapsing country looks like, and it's because of a corrupted system and government that's sold out to corporations owned by foreign interests. Let's talk about some stats. The Indian population in Frisco alone has surged 4,510% over the last 20 years, from 2.5% to 1/3 of the city. Now let's talk about a few of the big companies in Frisco with H-1B. IBM, they have 3,254 H-1B employees. They laid off an estimate of 25,000 Americans since 2024, and the CEO has shared plans of replacing 7,800 roles with artificial intelligence by 2030. Oracle has 834 H-1B employees. They've laid off an estimate of 20,000 Americans, and Oracle's CEO just sold over $1.8 billion in stock in June alone. And you know my favorite company, T-Mobile, has 472 H-1B employees. They've laid off at minimum 25,000 Americans in the past few years. T-Mobile insiders dumped $5.4 billion in stock in 2024 alone. And my favorite CEO, T-Mobile CEO Mike Sievert, has sold over $144 million in stock just over the last 3 years. And let me remind everyone of the mayor's donations. In 2021, 10% of donations above $1,000 were from people with Indian last names. In 2023, 55% of donations above $1,000 were from people with Indian last names. Texas and America is absolutely cooked, well done. And my story over the last 2 years proves it. Texas is proving it's been California with our new political theater of Democrats fleeing the state and Greg Abbott and Ken Paxton issuing warrants. Texas has just turned into an absolute joke. Trump is withholding FEMA funds from states and cities that they don't support Israel. His golf scores are sounding like North Korea propaganda, and he's creating a digital ecosystem for our health information with big tech and AI companies that hate humanity. House Democrats are digging into a quid pro quo between T-Mobile and Trump over Trump Mobile. And let's not forget about Frisco City Council working with the PGA to violate my First Amendment right by colluding with them to trespass me. And I'm the only person here that they purposely turn the camera to my back and refuse to show my face. For those of you that vote in this rigged system, I want to remind you that you vote for people who take an oath to the Constitution. My First Amendment right and my Second Amendment right are being stomped on by a corrupted government. You all should be caring and supporting me. I know I sound crazy, but that's because I choose to tell the truth in a world full of lies. My name is Mark Palaciano, Markpalaciano. Find me on YouTube, Substack, Instagram, or X. And the reason why I have to spell that is because you have to type in my full name exactly how I spell it to find me because of my severe shadow banning and censorship. You guys have a good night. See you next time.
Absolutely incredible stuff. Mark Palaciano will be my guest this hour. If you notice the date on that video, that was exactly 1 year ago today. So for a long time, he's been fighting this fight. Of course, we are a year deeper into the hole at this point because, of course, they have not stopped digging. We're going to talk to him about these incredible stats he laid out. As we were watching the video before the show, the crew piped in my ear and were just like, I almost threw up from that. I mean, the stats are so abysmal. And that was a year ago. It's only gotten worse. We'll be back on the other side with more. Stay with us, folks. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Alex Jones Show, AlexJonesLive.com. Of course, follow us on X at AJNLive, at Real Alex Jones. I'm at Harrison H. Smith, sitting in for Alex today. Very happy to be welcoming my guest, Mark Palaciano. I just misplaced his, I'm making sure I'm pronouncing that right, Palaciano. He's a lifelong Texan turned T-Mobile whistleblower, investigative journalist. He's known for roasting Frisco City Council. He's been exposing T-Mobile after working there 17 years, and he's turned his sights to Frisco City Council, where he's exposed the Indian takeover being fueled by H-1B visas. He's a big reason why Frisco City Council decided to turn off public comments on non-agenda items, because you can't have the people expressing themselves, God forbid. Follow him on X at Mark Palaciano. As he said in the video, if you saw it in the last segment, you have to spell his full name out. They do not want you being able to search this guy easily at MARC_PALASCIANO. Mark Palaciano, thank you so much for coming to the show, sir.
Thanks for having me, man. This is a huge life moment. I'm almost going to shed tears after watching my own video exactly 1 year ago, exposing the crazy H-1B takeover, how corporations are really destroying America from within. And not to change the topic either, but 1 week after that, I was put in jail in Collin County for harassment, which was really the state of Texas said I weaponized the First Amendment and free speech, all because I hurt the feelings of a T-Mobile executive.
Okay, that's crazy. I had no idea about that. Explain that to us. So give us your story. You're a T-Mobile whistleblower. What does that mean? What were you blowing the whistle on? When did that happen?
Yeah, no, thank you. So I, worked for T-Mobile for 17 years. I requested to be laid off because my goal was to go be an investigative journalist, be an independent journalist, just like yourself, right? Talking about things you can't find on mainstream news. So my plan was to kick off by being a whistleblower, exposing T-Mobile to launch my platform. But I underestimated how important my story was because exposing T-Mobile caused me severe shadow banning and censorship. T-Mobile is the World Economic Forum's telecommunications company. They created the vaccine passports for the World Health Organization, and they also created the digital ID that's being used in the European Union. T-Mobile USA is owned by Deutsche Telekom, which is T-Mobile Germany, right? They're 30% owned by the German government. They have all the technology to enslave humanity in the fourth industrial revolution in the World Economic Forum's Great Reset. Social credit scores, central bank digital currencies, like I said, vaccine passports, digital IDs. So I exposed all that. Not only that, but I shared my firsthand experience of exposing T-Mobile's diversity, equity, inclusion, and environmental social governance here in the United States. So, for example, T-Mobile still today provides unlimited money for transgender surgeries while they limit money for other benefits. So if you're a mom and you have 4 kids, all 4 of your kids get unlimited money for genital surgeries. They'll help you. They'll tattoo nipples for you. I mean, they'll do chin stuff, all of it, right? You have unlimited money to be able to do that. I expose how they have 10 diversity, equity, inclusion groups that are really designed to discriminate against white Christian males. And now T-Mobile, as a deal with the Trump administration last year, they got rid of their DEI practices. On paper, let's be real, they're still alive and well inside the organization. But I can go on and on about this stuff. I've been speaking up for 3 years. This is a huge accomplishment for me to be seeing myself with Alex Jones live, talking to Harrison Smith. So I'll shut up now and let you respond to some of the crazy stuff I just told you about.
This is so much deeper than I even thought it was. I know you from your videos, and you do a great job, sticking it to the Frisco City Council. I had no idea about all this in the background. Although I had a bit of a suspicion, because in that video, when you're like, basically we're being sold out so these international corporations can buy, it's like, okay, this guy gets it. It's not, you're not operating at this lower level. You understand that, okay, it's not just like Muslims wanting to take over America. It's these big companies that rely on their lower wages, and so they're getting kickbacks to the, I mean, it's not that complicated, but it's a little bit more complicated than just I'm angry because I, don't like these people. No, this is a sophisticated operation selling out the American people. So I knew, you were a little bit more on our side than not, but that is way deeper than I expected. So you blow the whistle on T-Mobile. You're exposing all of this stuff that they're doing that their customers, such as myself, probably wouldn't like that much. How does that lead to you getting arrested a week after the video that we just watched?
Yeah, I went to jail a week after the video. So I have been severely shadow banned and censored online, which I've exposed on Substack. I was watching myself to be deleted by Google, right? I'd search me, and all of a sudden I wouldn't show up. I believe X tested a lot of their new censorship tools on me. And so when I got censored and shadow banned, I started texting T-Mobile executives. I worked very closely with the guy that is now the T-Mobile COO, the second guy in charge at T-Mobile. I knew him. I knew his right-hand partner. And so I was pissed off, and I was texting him like, hey, I know T-Mobile is working with big tech to censor and shadow ban me. My TikTok was deleted. People can barely find me online. My impressions got crushed. Like, I know it's happening, right? But you can't prove it. And so anyway, I started texting the executive. I'm not getting anywhere with that. So my next step is I went to his neighborhood in Prosper, Texas, and passed out flyers. Now, he lives in a gated community, not with a security guard or anything, just like an apartment complex, right? So I drove him by in a car, and I walked to every single house and put a flyer on the doorstep that shared a little bit about my story and had links to 6 of my other stories I've exposed about T-Mobile, which is a lot of the crazy stuff I just explained to you before this, right? He filed harassment charges on me. I turned myself into the Collin County Jail. This was October 2024, and we didn't go to trial until August 2025. What's crazy about my trial, and so during that time, I went and stood in front of the Collin County Courthouse and held up a sign saying the DA framed me with T-Mobile. I was wild and out, doing all sorts of crazy stuff because I really kind of trusted that the jurors would be on my side and see what I'm doing, right? But I learned that most of society is brainwashed these days. It's a perfect example, like, Shiloh being found guilty of free speech. You got Chud. You have a lot of examples in America where people are being prosecuted for their First Amendment right because the people that are sitting in the jury box are freaking brainwashed NPCs that don't understand our own laws. But anyway, sorry, little soapbox there.
Well, but that it's an important background to understand. And again, it's like if you could just get your message out there, it's like God bless you for resorting to handing out flyers, but like, why is that even necessary in today's day and age? Because the local media doesn't want to pick this up. The big tech is going to crush it. I mean, that's just going to happen. And so, of course, what inspired your turn towards, because I've seen you mainly focus on the takeover of places like Frisco. I doubt it's a coincidence that you were, arrested and thrown into jail for for whatever excuse they had just 1 week after you gave that great speech. What made you turn your focus towards that? And were you noticing that while you were still at T-Mobile, that were they using H-1B visas to lay off Americans there?
That's a great question. So the reason why I speak at Frisco is because the big T-Mobile office I worked at is in Frisco, right? I would call it their number 2 headquarters in the United States. They're actually based out of Bellevue. I think they're going to end up moving to Texas as their main headquarters soon enough. But so I went to city council because, I expect people that take oaths to the Constitution to actually care about what I'm exposing, right? I mean, T-Mobile even censored text messages during COVID. There is so much tyranny that I have exposed that I believe people should help me. So at T-Mobile, when I was working there, I totally recognized a lot of Indians working in engineering. I had no idea what H-1B it was at the time, right? But I definitely witnessed that firsthand while working there. And then I went to Frisco, started speaking up. When they started ignoring me and disrespecting me by turning the camera to my back, that's when I started digging into the mayor. That's when I dug into the donations, right? I was already talking about H-1B visas, and it just I just kept building upon it. And, I went to jail. I was in jail from August 11th to November 23rd. I got out 2 days before Thanksgiving. Yeah, I was actually sentenced to 6 months in jail, but I got out early in Collin County because I worked in the kitchen, which got me 2 for 1. And my case was a misdemeanor. I did more jail time on a misdemeanor than some people do on felony drug charges in Texas, which is crazy. But so
for
I got out
for handing out flyers.
Well, if I wouldn't have the problem was I also text these guys, right? But he never asked me to stop. Another crazy thing about my case is Texas actually rewrote my charge. So the charge said that I kept texting him after he told me to stop, which was a lie. He never told me to stop. I was kind of waiting for him to tell me to stop, right? I kind of thought he blocked me, wouldn't listen to me. It was only about, I'd call it 30 or 40 messages over 2 months. And so we were supposed to go to trial in May, and the state requested to rewrite the charge. And then what they did after that is they filed warrants for all of my social media accounts. And they used my tweets against me because instead of the 30 or 40 text messages, they said I sent over 150 electronic communications as harassment, which those were my
because
tweets.
You were tweeting about him. Okay.
Because I was tweeting.
Wow. All right. Yeah, that's very sinister kind of. And what did you say? They said you weaponized the First Amendment. Is that a quote?
Yep. That is a direct quote from the prosecution team. I weaponized the First Amendment. I weaponized free speech. I watched the prosecution in Collin County lie. I would bet that my Collin County misdemeanor case was the most expensive misdemeanor trial Collin County has ever tried. The whole room, on my side, I had my wife and her family, and that's it. On the other side, they had the whole misdemeanor prosecution team back there helping, sending text messages to the prosecutor. And, I watched the T-Mobile executive lie under oath about some things. And, it was crazy because I also, one thing exposed how T-Mobile discriminated against me during COVID with the vaccine mandate. I was on I wasn't just your low-level employee at T-Mobile. I actually worked my way up into a senior management position, and I was leading the response for COVID. That's what helped me get educated on all the stuff that I exposed. That's what really woke me up. Like a lot of Americans woke up in 2020, right? A lot of you guys were kind of awake before us, but a lot of us didn't snap into it until that happened.
Yeah, and we were up cooking breakfast, waiting for everybody else to make their way upstairs. Yeah.
And so, I exposed how they discriminate against me based on my vaccine status, which is actually a violation of Texas Health and Safety Code, Chapter 81D. It was crazy to watch the prosecution turn that around on me. Like, make me look for the bad guy, make me look as the bad guy for standing up for what was right.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of wrinkles. You make some pretty powerful enemies, my friend. That's absolutely wild. And, the point you made during the speech we played in the first 5 minutes and that you sort of referenced just now, the amount of money, the looking into, who's giving money to these people. Are they making choices on the basis of who's donating to their political campaigns? I've made the point that, this is, I think, one of the key things that people are maybe missing. When an Indian person wants to buy a gas station, own a gas station in America, there's something like $200,000 worth of grants that they can receive from the government that are not offered to a white, indigenous, native born American person. That's $200,000 that they can either put into more inventory to make more money, or maybe they could hire more people, or that's $200,000 that they can donate to the political structure to get their people elected. So, all of these benefits that go to these minority groups, they are really just one step away from political power, because giving these people money and then allowing them to spend it back on the government to get them more money, it's a feedback loop that they're creating here. So I think that's a very important point about this invasion that people are overlooking. The more, money and wealth these groups get, the more political power they get. It's a feedback loop, a snowball rolling down the hill. Can you talk a little bit more about that, how you identified and, what you think is actually happening with these donations?
Yeah, the donations on top of that, the corporations are helping them. Look how, if you have an H-1B visa, you can go get a great credit rate on a car and buy a car for what you and I can get it for, right? Back in the day in 2009, when I worked at T-Mobile in the stores selling phones, H-1B visas from Infosys could walk in and get a free phone on a 2-year contract. I was 25 years old at the time working there, and I couldn't even get a free phone on a 2-year contract, right? But the donations, you can see, as I stated in that video, how the influx has gone from 10% of donations above $1,000 were from Indians to 55%. And that was for the old mayor, Frisco Mayor Jeff Chaney. The new one, Mark Hill, who just got elected in last year, you should see how many donations from foreigners, whether it's Indians or Muslims, are going to him. I've exposed 3 of them. They run H-1B companies. I went to their offices and visited them, and nobody's there. And so not only are the foreigners figuring out how to donate and buy our politicians to get what they want, whether it's developing real estate, but also the fact that there's companies or the Indians that I believe should be investigated for H-1B fraud are donating money to the new Frisco mayor. And then he's even paying one of them to do advertising. And he's thanked them in his video where they have their big party where they celebrate he got the new mayor seat. And he's thanking one of the Indians that I've exposed that I think should be investigated for H-1B fraud.
And the H-1B fraud, it's the fraud on top of the fraud, right? I think H-1B visas shouldn't exist at all. But it's okay, here's this thing that exists. Maybe it can be used in extraordinary circumstances. If there's some aerospace company that has been trying for a year and it just can't find anybody qualified, but there's this great candidate in China, okay, maybe we can make a deal. It's supposed to be for these specific cases, and the companies are supposed to fulfill all these obligations. Even with that, I'm not exactly for it. But then on top of that, on top of selling out our jobs to foreigners, the fraud is rampant. And again, people are generally becoming more aware of this, but have no idea about the body shops that Indians run, where it's literally just it's a mill. They just bring people in, take a cut of their earnings, say that they're qualified when they're not. What is it going to take for Americans to understand they're being scammed? Because that is the biggest hurdle right now to me. Is people sort of see what's going on. They see that okay, wages aren't rising as much as they should. Yet they can't take that extra leap to go, this is because we're being screwed over and scammed, and we need to stop these people from coming over and taking our stuff. What is it going to take for Americans to wake up to the reality of this situation?
That's why I continue to speak up and, fight for sharing my story and exposing the crazy stuff I talk about. And what's with H-1B, it's a little complex. So I think some people don't really understand it. The corporations that are using H-1B, they're not breaking any laws. The government gave them this tool to, like you stated, if it's used in some very rare circumstance, but it really shouldn't even be available. It's almost disrespectful to tell Americans hey, you're too stupid to do these jobs. So we got to go to India and China to find. I'm sure we got kids in high school that can do better coding than these H-1B Indians, right? And so, but it's the corporations, they're using it within their legal rights. The other piece of it is these Indians that are creating their body shops and these consulting firms, and they have, when I go look at their employment, when I go look at the H-1Bs, their labor condition application, which is the filing with the government, I can see the ones where they work for T-Mobile or Verizon or these corporations. But then there's some that are working directly for the Indians person's company. Those are the ones that are questionable. One led me to a house in McKinney where there was 3 labor condition applications registered to this house, and I went and knocked on the door. That Indian that I was digging into is actually also the guy who is funding one of the new Hindu temples in Frisco, Texas. Because that's another thing I've exposed here in the back in May. I exposed how on the Frisco City Council agenda, they were voting on 2 new Indian temples and 1 new mosque all in one night. You probably saw videos from that May 19th where it went viral. There were so many people there. But I exposed who's behind both of those, the Jain temple and the Hindu temple. And both of these people are tied to nonprofits, and they're running companies that have questionable H-1B activity.
So really, I mean, again, when you think about this as a assembly line almost, right? It's like people come in, they file for H-1B visas. Every single H-1B visa recipient brings in an average of 15 family members, by the way. Those are some of the numbers that we've heard of, recently involving this type of stuff. They get, bonuses from the government. They get grants from the government to start their business and hire people. They're, put on welfare. They're not having to pay for groceries like Americans are. It's extra money in their pocket that they can give to politicians who will bring over more of them, and then they can contribute to their ethnic groups, which will build temples for them, which will, inspire more people to come. I mean, what they're doing is smart. From their perspective, it's like we have just opened ourselves to be taken over, and they're taking us over. And it's, obviously a very well, orchestrated, well-oiled machine they're running. It just has no benefit whatsoever for the American people. And this, to me, is the most frustrating part. And I think we just have time to go, at least go to the beginning of this video. This is also in McKinney. So McKinney, Texas, Frisco, Texas sort of seem to be the hotspots of this. This is a Muslim supporting the construction of a proposed Islamic center. And just last night, there was a lot of very contentious hearing in McKinney about this Muslim center, and we can show you more clips from it. But this one I think is interesting. It's a Muslim man supporting the building of this Islamic center and mosque. And we'll just play the first few seconds because of how he starts his speech. Let's go to clip number 33 now.
We will change the United States Constitution with this mosque.
So everyone's booing. So he starts out the speech there going, we're going to change the Constitution. And everybody boos. And this to me is emblematic of just like, why do we have to do this? Why do we have to spend our time, go out on a weeknight, go to this to say, hey, we don't want our Constitution changed. We don't want our fundamental morals of our country changed by hostile foreigners who disagree. It's like, why is this a burden that the American people have to constantly be on guard against our own government selling us out to foreigners? It's outrageous, honestly.
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with fueling the culture wars, right? Like you said it earlier, a lot of people just want to fight with the Muslims or fight with the Hindus, but ultimately it's our government that's captured. Our government is they're the ones allowing it to happen. Those are the people that take oaths to constitutions. Those are the people that are supposed to be helping us. Now, like with the mosque stuff, what's crazy though is Texas state and federal law protects these Muslims from building as many mosques as they want to. And that's what a lot of people don't really understand is like the city council, yeah, they're bought and paid for. They're sold out, but they can't vote no, because if they do, they're going to be sued and they're going to lose. And so it's time for our federal government and our state leaders to step up and do something different. And that's just, I can't even get these guys to call me back. I've reached out to I've shared a lot of stuff where I can tell you like, holy smokes, this guy's got a crazy story. He's exposed a lot of stuff. I can't even get help from the government. I've reached out to every person that should care, and they don't even respond to me or take the time to talk to me.
I'm not exactly surprised, obviously hugely disappointed, but yeah, no, you're exactly right. And again, just to picture it just at the fundamentals, like what's actually happening here is you've got a group of people who are like, hey, we're going to impanel a government. They're going to protect us. They impanel this government. They give them authority. And then they turn around and that person is just selling out their birthright to strangers. And it's just like, then why do we even have this government? The whole role is to protect us from them. Now suddenly they feel like they have to give them an equal treatment. Why? This is ridiculous. We'll get into it on the other side, but This is exhausting. We need a government that just doesn't attack us and try to destroy us constantly. Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be amazing? A government that serves us, the people? What a thought.
There is a massive sale going on right now at thealexjonesstore.com. Huge. Ultimate summer sale. 50% off Ultimate Power, Freedom Mango, and Patriot Punch. Methylene Red capsules. This is a proprietary product. It would take an hour to get into Ultra Methylene Red. The capsules are now in. Mind-fueled nootropic energy shots, all 50% off. 40% off Zeolite tincture, detoxifying, go up spike protein, and it's good for your whole body, getting heavy metals out. Methylene Blue tincture, 40% off. CMOS gummies, 40% off. Shilajit gummies, 40% off. Methylene Blue gummies, 40% off. Ultimate Chill, and a whole bunch of other big discounts as well. 30% off all apparel. The widest selection of Patriot shirts of every different design, configuration. It is the widest selection. It's over 800 different shirts. It's ridiculous. The new line that I designed is, I think, pretty good. Rebel Scums from 1776. The Betsy Ross flag, less 1984, more 1776. In muscle shirts. A whole bunch of other really cool stuff now at thealexjonesstore.com. I love this lightweight so-called dress shirt, but it's a very special type of shirt from a great manufacturer. We now have the boxer shorts, and they're not boxer like underwear. You know, the classic boxer shorts that aren't long and aren't short. They're just kind of medium. They're my favorite type. I picked these out. I picked the brand. I said, this is the type of short I like. We're adding a lot of new apparel at thealexjonesstore.com. And every order right now, and it's about to end in the next few days, gets a free mystery T-shirt. You just put your size in, you get a free mystery T-shirt with every order that's $29 or more at thealexjonesstore.com. That is a hell of a deal right now. We've got the Silver Collectible 250-year anniversary with the amazing Jerusalem Cross. Those are going to be gone soon. TheAlexJonesStore.com, and you stand with us, and you know that all the great work we're doing is because of you. You are the reason we're here. You are the InfoWar. TheAlexJonesStore.com.
I'm joined by Mark Palaciano, who is a man in the arena who took it upon himself to do what we implore all Americans with the talent and ability to do: become a whistleblower, become a journalist, get involved, get active, cause problems for the little petty tyrants in your city council that are selling out your birthright for pennies on the dollar. Incredible interviews so far, and stuff about T-Mobile I had no idea about. You can follow Mark on X at Mark_Palaciano. And interestingly, Mark, we got a letter. This never happened. We received a letter during the break, no joke, from somebody watching the show. And I wanted to read it. She says, "Good morning. I just tuned into the show and heard Harrison interviewing a guest about T-Mobile and their H-1B visa practices. It really struck a nerve for me." She says, "I worked in customer service for UNFI, one of the country's largest food distributors, from 2023 to 2025. My employment came to an end when the company laid off the entire customer service team, including representatives, supervisors, and managers, many of whom had been there for over 20 years. Employees in finance and IT were also affected. The company outsourced these roles to Wipro, a firm based in India. It's difficult to understand how companies can let go of experienced American workers and move those jobs overseas. For those of us directly impacted, it's not just a business decision, it's deeply personal and raises serious questions about workforce priorities and corporate responsibility. Someone needs to protect American workers, not shareholders' pockets." Love the show. So, I mean, we just received this, and obviously this person had hundreds of people with them feeling exactly the same way. I'm sure people that worked with you at T-Mobile saw their jobs go to India. I mean, this is such a regular occurrence now. It's treated as like normal. This is so abnormal in the course of human history, the idea that your government is just like aggressively selling off your jobs to everybody else in the world as fast as they possibly can. It's insane that we have to deal with this. And we do have to deal with it. Again, I've got I'll read you the titles, at least we don't go to the videos, of McKinney, Texas, North Carolina, everywhere around the country. Regular people are having to take time out of their lives to go argue with their own government to say, hey, please don't destroy my livelihood. Please don't build a data center in my backyard. Please don't put up flock cameras on my corner. Just please stop attacking us. It's exhausting having to do this all the time. How do we get to a point? Is it even possible, Mark, how we can get to a point where we can just trust our government not to screw us over constantly? Because I feel like this is, even though, resistance movements like the one you're helping to lead and contribute to, people standing up and fighting back, it can be effective, but not over the long term. We need to end the threat. Do you have any idea how we get there?
You know, over the past 3 years, man, I feel like I've documented a story that exposes how far corrupt and how far gone our system is. You know, I shouldn't be the only one out here talking about T-Mobile. Let me tell you some other crazy stuff. Like, they just got their new Indian-born CEO in November 2025. They're laying off Americans. Well, not only they're employing H-1Bs, they actually opened up, like the last screenshot, they opened up a new hub in Hyderabad, India, that services T-Mobile USA.
Right.
So now, and what's crazy is I heard from some T-Mobile people that they actually sent Americans over to India to go train these employees.
Yeah.
And it's gotten absolutely out of hand with the foreign takeover. And, you know, you kind of mentioned Flock. I'm not going to create a whole new rabbit hole, but T-Mobile has all the technology for 15-minute smart cities.
Right.
Think about 5G. Think about them connected with Starlink. And so anyway, I have to actually fight to have hope. Like I said, I've been censored. This is huge for me. Like every few weeks, I kind of get in this moment where like, man, I can't get anyone to see my videos on X. I can't grow on my YouTube. I'm trying all these things. I'm speaking up. Big tech can shut me up. But then someone like you comes and, you know, puts your hand out and gives me an opportunity to share my story. And it reinvigorates me to keep speaking up. But like you said, I mean, I don't know what else to do. I mean, you know, I stand outside of buildings with signs exposing stuff. And so I've tried everything.
Well, no, absolutely. And the thing is, we rely on people like you too, right? I mean, this is a mutually beneficial exchange here because, you know, we can't be looking into all this stuff all the time. We're trying to cover the war and the everything. So it's like we need people like you. We need people on the ground. We need people reporting this stuff. And if we can serve as a hub to get your information out to more people, then that's what our purpose is at the end of the day. And I do encourage everybody to go follow Mark. You can follow him on X at Mark Palaciano, but you got to spell the whole thing because just like with Alex Jones or myself, you have to type out the whole name. Even, I mean, when it comes to Alex Jones, you have to type out the whole name, then hit search, then scroll down to find him. I mean, these little manipulations, these little, just make it a little bit harder for people to find. It has a big impact. Follow Mark at MARC_PALASCIANO and support and spread his work. Because again, the video that we showed, I said it, in the first segment. I was watching that video before we went live, and the crew could hear it from my computer. And after it was over, they timed and go, yeah, that almost made me throw up. I mean, the stats that you're delivering are so devastating that, like, people can't help but recognize that it's a problem. I mean, even if they think, oh, you're just white supremacist, that blah, blah, blah. It's like you hear the rate at which American jobs are being sold out. How can you deny that this is an attack against the American people and the middle class in particular? Let me just read some of let me get first your take on what's happening with deportations, because Mark Wayne Mullins is out there trying to, put across the idea that they're really taking it seriously and deportations are on track. He says they're on track this year to deport more illegal immigrants by the end of this month than they did for all of last year, adding that over the last 7 days, they're averaging 4,200 deportations a day. That sounds like a lot. 4,200 deportations should sound like a lot. But you're talking about 1.5 million or so on average for the year, considering the fact that we brought in something like 20 to, I would say, 50 million in those 4 years. Somebody did the math. I think it was Andrew Barca did the math. And he's like, okay, so in 70 years, we'll have expelled just the people that came across from 2020, which, of course, is absurd because in 70 years, they'll all have great-grandchildren by then. This is not fast enough. So obviously, Trump, who ran and got his start and his whole thing was being the deportation guy, he's not doing it. So again, it's like, what is it going to take? We can't even stop the flow, let alone reverse it at the rate that we need to. How are we going to do this? This is one of the things I do, Mark. I don't know if you watch the show. I ask my guests impossible questions like, how do we fix immigration? Go, sir. But seriously, I'm at my wit's end too. I don't know who else we can vote for if Donald Trump himself is incapable of this. What do we do here, Mark?
Yeah, candidly, man, I've tuned it all out. I don't have any trust for the government. Like I showed you, when you're a whistleblower and then you get put in jail for your free speech, and I reached out to the whistleblower program. every elected official that should help me. No one cared. And so I don't have faith that they're going to deport all these illegals. And while they're, celebrating how they're going to take 20 years or 70 years to deport the same amount of people that came over in the past few years, the floodgates are open for corporations and H-1B visas. Like you said, one H-1B visa can lead to 15 people coming over here. And so it's just, this last election, I didn't vote. 2020 was actually the first and last time in my life that I voted. I watched the election be stolen with mail-in ballots, and I believe that's why COVID was here, and so on and so forth. But then, I saw everybody being real hyped up about Trump in 2024, but I've drawn a line in the sand with the vaccine, right? Like, that's one of the things that I speak up about with T-Mobile and how they discriminate against me based on my status. And until the government recognizes like that wasn't good, I just can't buy into it anymore, right? And so, unfortunately, I don't have faith in the government doing anything that they are saying they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely don't blame you. And that brings to mind the fact that Todd Blanche, there was an article, I don't know if I have it here, but it was like the Senate didn't want to pass Todd Blanche. And so Donald Trump was like, if you don't pass Todd Blanche, then I'll try to get the weaponization fund restarted. And it's like, why are the Republicans the ones that are stopping the weaponization fund? If you don't, there's $1.8 billion that's been set aside to pay people for the pain and suffering they were caused by the persecution of the Biden administration. January 6th, the people that were arrested, I think it should go to people like yourself who were fired for, the jab. I mean, these were all violations of your civil rights. And, you have a class action lawsuit, you get a big settlement, you deserve some, recompense for your pain and suffering. It's the Republicans that are stopping that. The Republicans are the ones saying, well, $1.8 billion, we don't want that to go to our people. No, we can't. Not in a million years would we allow this amount of money to go towards, any of our people to benefit their lives. Meanwhile, I think they just signed $700 billion for more weaponry. So, I mean, this is the absurdity. We even in times where we do get some sort of response from the government, it's our side that steps in and stops it. It's beyond outrageous. And we got to do something because, like I said, we can't. This is unsustainable. Let me just go through a few of these. We can go to .cam here. We won't go to these videos necessarily because they're very long. But McKinney, Texas, tensions high as the McKinney City Council meeting as supporters of the Islamic Center and opponents of the project clash. The McKinney City Council is set to consider approval of the Islamic Center and mosque. Again, if people don't want it in their neighborhood, why are they forced to accept this outside influence? It's absurd. Heroes rose in McKinney tonight, and Congressman Keith Self delivered the truth without flinching. So U.S. Congressman Keith Self looked at the mayor and city council dead in the eye and refused to soft pedal reality. Self reminded them of 1,400 years of political Islam that cannot be wished away, bringing up things like child marriage, honor killings, saying, don't tell me it can't happen here because it's already happening in Texas, beating your wife, polygamy, all condoned under Sharia political Islam. Again, and then you've got the Muslim person going, yeah, we're here, we're going to change your constitution. It's just like, why are we having to defend against this? What war did we lose? I'm sorry, Mark, did we lose a war that I'm not familiar with? Did we get conquered at some point and we have to do this because we're at the point of a sword? Otherwise, why are our people having to constantly try to justify our own existence and try desperately to beg the government not to allow us to be replaced by people that aren't us? Again, this idea that we impanel the government, we empower them, we give them authority on the basis of the fact that we offload our protection to them, and that they turn around and go, yeah, but this Muslim guy from India wants to actually have your town, so I got to give him a fair shake. No, you don't. You are here to defend us and our way of life. Why do people think it's their job now to give an equal hearing to a bunch of hostile foreigners? I'm rambling, but it's just genuinely insane, dude. What do we do? I mean, why do we have to do this? Why do you think the city councils all around the country, everywhere you look, can't seem to recognize that this is an invasion, a takeover, a conquering? Why can't they understand that?
Yeah, no, you asked what war did we lose? And we're losing the war of the government versus the people, right? And our government is bought and paid for. Every single elected official, all they care about is making money. They don't care about the oath that they took to the Constitution. They don't care about people like me that are speaking up. I should be, just to share, I'm completely self-funded. I've been living on my savings for the past 3 years, right? My goal was to make money with independent journalism, but big tech has me by the digital balls, and they have made it extremely hard for me to succeed in that, right? And so, but if I started taking money from companies and donors, I probably wouldn't be saying the stuff that I'm saying. And that's the reality of America is a lot of not only are our politicians owned, but a lot of these journalists that we see that have big platforms, they're owned too. And they are purposely driving agendas that is really kind of dividing America more and making it hard for us to unite because it needs to be the people versus the government at this point. And it's just really hard to do that when you have all of us being separated through these culture wars that are going on.
100%. 100%. Again, I just can't help but try to like put it in a different frame of just like, we're supposed to be a family. This is like the father and the mother of the family just being like, yeah, but, it's kind of unfair for me to benefit my own kids over these other random kids that hate my kids. And it's like, why would you think that that's a moral position? Why would you, as the authority, as the leadership of this country, why would you think that you have an obligation to give a fair hearing or actually give the benefit of the doubt and prefer people that aren't your constituents? It is a fundamental disconnect with what their actual role is. And it does all come, as simple as it seems, it does all come down to money. You have things like this. Utah Senator John Curtis proposes state-led migrant worker program. This is a supposed conservative, but he's introducing a bill on Monday that would create a voluntary state-sponsored visa program allowing state legislatures to expand their temporary migrant workforce. So I guess they want the government itself to be hiring state-level guest workers. Again, conservative. We've seen conservative, the governor of wherever it was, Idaho or Iowa or wherever, was giving an interview where, again, he's like, and they literally bases on, well, GDP. Hey, we want line go up. I guess we got to sell out our constituents' birthrights. And it's like, they are the ones making it. We don't even have to say, hey, they're doing this for money. They think that's a valid reason to do this, which, again, this is all just so baffling. But yeah, it's the Republicans who are doing this. Is there any, do we just need to get rid of money in politics in total or what here? Because, again, this is exhausting. We cannot be fighting every weekend just to beg not to have our culture destroyed. It can't go on. North Carolina, they're doing this as well. Do you think it's worse in Texas, or do you think it's just getting more attention in Texas? Because I constantly kind of have trouble determining whether it's like, dang, Texas is really being hit hard, or whether Texas is just a state that's actually standing up against it. So you see videos of people like yourself. Do you think Texas is being targeted in particular, and for what reason?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because, like everyone says, once Texas falls, America falls.
Right.
Well, I've been telling people Texas has already fallen. My story single-handedly proves it. And, I would actually say Texas is the worst because there's still a lot of people out here that think Texas is, this display of freedom and courage and don't mess with Texas. And you got people, every week we're seeing videos pop up of people speaking at city councils here in Texas, like you said, whether it's Indian takeover, data centers. We can go on and on about all the stuff that's being exposed. And, I tweeted this out yesterday. There was a city council meeting in McKinney that you showed that was over the mosque. There was a city council meeting in Frisco where a lot of people were speaking up about this field being turned into a new retail space, which I exposed the developer behind it as another Indian guy. We don't know who his investors are, right? And then Ken Paxton's hosting his election party in Allen, Texas. So in Collin County, the city councils, people are standing up, but then the Texas Attorney General is like having a party in the same county. Like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, and again, it really does just seem to be the money. It's literally just like, well, I can get money from my campaign, and they can make more money, so GDP goes up. And sure, I'm destroying the lives of American families, but I'm building the lives of Indian families, and I see all humans as perfectly good. It's like, you're our leadership. What are you doing? Again, this is the absurd part. We do have time to go to some of these. Let's go to clip 15 here. This is in McKinney, Texas. This was yesterday, posted by Carlos Tusurios. Tensions are high at the McKinney City Council meeting as supporters of the Islamic Center and opponents of the project clash. The McKinney City Council is set to consider the approval of the Islamic Center. So let's go now to clip number 15. It's a short one. But here you can see, it gets physical. And you got this little old lady, which, this is the thing to me. You got a little old Texas lady. Why is she getting in fisticuffs with, a big Muslim dude? Which, again, just seems absurd to me that it's so the people of McKinney don't want this. These other foreign hostile outsiders do, and so the city council has to weigh these two evenly, has to determine which gets to win. No, the people of McKinney win. Just automatically just go, oh, okay, they don't want it, then they don't have to be subjected to it. I don't mean to be repeating myself, but it is just this simple, isn't it?
Yeah, one of a quote that I feel like I came up with, I love to come up with random lines, right? I believe capitalism has been stolen from the American people, and it's now being used against us because it ultimately is, bottom line, how much money can be made by whatever you're doing. And we both have listed off multiple examples in this conversation of how money is really fueling the actions of the people that are destroying America from within.
Yep. And again, just take it to the obvious, family metaphor. Obviously, I would love to make more money. I would like to have, more wealth because I would like to benefit my children. So I want my children to do well. And this is the idea of I want more wealth, so I'm going to sell my children. And it's defeating the purpose of wanting the wealth. We want our GDP to go up because we want Americans to do better. That's the score that's supposed to tell you that Americans are doing well. If you're selling Americans out to increase that score, what the hell are you doing? That's where I break with capitalism. Capitalism as a financial, exchange mechanism is great. It's not my religion. It's not my belief. It's not where my loyalty lies, which is different for Republicans, it seems. I think you're exactly right about that. Let's go to clip, I believe it's 37 here. Hundreds of North Carolinians have stormed a town council meeting to protest a proposed 5,000 square foot mosque in Mooresville, North Carolina, that they were not even told about. Multiple women got up to say that Islam is an evil ideology and to reject Sharia law. Let's go now to clip number 37.
Examine closely whether the building of this mosque is right for this community. I personally say no to Sharia law and this Muslim center.
How can you serve and protect us when you can't even tell us about a proposed mosque in our backyard?
It was a full house tonight at the Mooresville Commissioners meeting as the town considers a new mosque in the city that has been met with controversy. Many in attendance voiced their concerns about the new complex, with complaints ranging from traffic issues and a lack of transparency, as the potential property was not listed on tonight's agenda. The Board of Commissioners responding to those citizens tonight, saying the property has been approved for religious use since it was annexed into the town limits back in 1998. And they went on to detail how much space the building would take up and encourage the community to continue to share their concerns about any proposed project.
So again, whether it's Texas, North Carolina, all over the country, Americans says little old ladies are having to get up and go, I would not like a gigantic hostile colony in my backyard, please, only to be told, well, technically in 1998, they signed some random agreement, so hands are tied. Totally absurd. Thank you so much for being with us. Mark Palaciano, you're doing such a great job. I want to give you the final word and just a message to people of how they can support you, of course, but also what they need to know and how they can get involved as well, because not only do I want you to do well and succeed and be able to make this your full-time profession, exposing this stuff, extremely valuable service you perform, I want you to inspire other people as well. So how can people support you? How can people follow you? And what is your message of encouragement to those of us who are looking desperately for some silver lining on the clouds?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. This, it means a lot to me. And, that's one of the things that I've been most proud of is I've actually inspired other people to speak up. That's what I finally learned is the only way that we're going to influence change is by all of us go speak up at these opportunities where we can, and we have to kind of create. If everybody was doing what I was doing, we would have already started a revolution.
Yeah.
Now, I also know it's hard for people to do this because cancel culture, they're afraid of losing their careers, right? So I know that I speak up for a lot of people and I say stuff that others can't. Support me. Like I told you, I'm self-funded. So please subscribe to me on X or subscribe to me on Instagram, right? I want to stay completely self-funded and not sell out to some, company that's going to dictate the things that I can say or can't say. And so, yeah, it really, if you go check out all the stuff that I've exposed and share, even if you can't subscribe to me, just share my stuff, share my story, share my accounts, because I guarantee whether you go to my YouTube and watch one of the 19 times that I've spoke at Frisco City Council, or you go to my Substack and read about T-Mobile, you're going to see some crazy stuff that is truth you can't find anywhere else that exposes kind of how America is being destroyed from within.
100%. No, absolutely. We need you as a success story. Follow Mark Palaciano on X at Mark_Palaciano. That's MarkPalaciano. Cannot thank you enough for doing everything that you do, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again very soon, sir. Thank you for being with us.
I'm going to tell you something right now.